Early Education Hardly Good for Bangladeshi Children by O. Haider. A new trend in education is early schooling, particularly in cities. The trend is expanding intensively and spreading everywhere rapidly. The trend is not yet clearly positive, rather mixed depending on the children's family background in particular. That is why it should require quite a few speculations, considerations, comparisons and reflections mostly on individual learner and his surroundings so that the right choice has really been made. Education was a continuous process from Class 1 to matriculation, SSC, then a little more up to intermediate, then a little more up to graduation, then a little more up to BA, honors, instead of BA, pass. That is not all. Without masters, education was not complete, even when MA was not still a pursuing degree for BSc graduates and engineers. Still, competition in the job market is not happy with Bangladeshi MA. It wants a foreign MA like water purifier. Then comes the need of a second MA for those who find it impossible to earn a foreign MA. Students are helpless since it covers their whole youth and their parents are in a snafu situation because they cannot bear the expenses when they want their offspring earn money rather than spend it. But what to do? The job market does not listen to their cries for help, especially because the job seekers are increasing much more rapidly than the jobs. Besides, the private jobs are expanding far more rapidly than the government ones. Here the priority goes to the close relatives and well-acquaints. As a result, proficiency loses its strengths. To balance the competition, the unknown need to pursue extra degrees and special proficiency. For all these, the most lucrative degree is Doctor of Philosophy, well known as PhD. It has become a part of continuous degree after MA. To upgrade the existing position, this PhD is also very influential and the postdoctoral is an extra qualification. But it is a matter of more than 22 years of education. Whereas the parents are mostly destitute and awaiting the jobs of their sons, in particular in Bangladesh, they are bound to carry on the educational expenses. This is not all. The other substantial difficulty is the early education of their offspring. The early education is well known to most of the urban people, even to the suburban. Children who are around 4, are ready or even forced to go to school, no matter how much they feel sleepy in the early morning, how much they contribute to traffic jam for the office goers, how much they are vulnerable and susceptible to the road accidents, how much they stay empty stomach for long in the morning, how much they take fast food as it is available on roadsides in the dazzling and colorful packets, and above all, no matter how much the parents have to spend extra money and their valuable time for their early schooling. Is this all? Not at all. The children cannot enroll in Class 1 at the age of 6 or even 7 because they have to cross-play, nursery, KG1 and KG2 before Class 1. The school authority may be happy with the early education for the sake of quick name and fame along with cash in huge amount. Sometimes, the authority evasively tries to intimidate the parents, expressing how difficult it is going to be for the young learners to cope up with the other children who have already finished the early schooling. The authority may even try to prove and establish how far it is more difficult to study for the children at present than it was earlier. Now the question is whether the early education is widespread only in Bangladesh. No. The situation is the same everywhere else. Then the question comes, what may be wrong in Bangladesh? Shakespeare implies nothing is good or bad if not properly thought about or considered appropriately. Some important factors may be discussed in the following manner. The early schooling is relatively easier and more accessible to those who can bear expenses easily, have private transport, or for those jobless mothers who need a daily outing, a little for change and recreation. Still, the school should be as close by as possible. This will save money and time, and above all, it will decrease the traffic jam and the statistical risk of road accidents. Nowadays, the number of housewives is decreasing substantially because women are getting much more involved with jobs and the other engagements due to modernization and digitalization. All are getting busier one way or the other. The children hardly live with their grandparents, aunts or uncles who could have assisted for their schooling. All these factors should be considered before selecting the appropriate age of schooling as well as the place and environment of the school. The schooling should be as affordable as possible depending on the ability of the parents. Suppose some neighbors have sent their offspring to a rich school. Does it mean you should do the same? A common proverb is cut your coat according to your cloth. Does it mean that you are underprivileged? If you speculate, you will realize the fact. It is more likely that the more you have money, the less you have time, or vice versa, though there are exceptions everywhere. It is better to compare several factors which will help find what is better. Can you certify something which is good for someone is also good for you? To clarify, your children are not as safe and comfortable inside a private car as they are on a rickshaw or public transport. But you should not be hopeless, since Francis Bacon wittily advocates adversity to be preferred to advantages. For example, Razak, the prominent former film actor, was asked why his son could not earn the similar fame or even better than he had. In reply, Razak said he had to make harder efforts to build a platform while his son had already occupied it free of efforts. In fact, adversity is the real spur for moving forward to a safer ground. There may be usually three kinds of students. Firstly, there are students who memorize hard and perform well in the exams up to intermediate, but they cannot keep their energy in the graduation level, and subsequently develop distaste to studies. From my own experience and observation while teaching at tertiary level, I can identify the main reason of some of the negligent, inattentive, irregular, careless, dull students who are devoid of exam phobia and absolutely free from tension and facilitative anxiety. The reason is, they had been regular in the schools, busy with private tuitions and coaching centers only because they were afraid of punishment by the parents. Such kind of a girl was found to have been busy for 51 hours weekly, 30 hours in the school, 9 hours in the coaching center and 12 hours for private tuition. Her father was happy, her mother was happier, the private tutors and coaching instructors were the happiest, though it does not matter, she was the unhappiest. Now her parents cannot keep an eye with her as she studies at a university, free from her parents' choices, powerful to decide not to take part in the classes, confidently well planned to study just in the previous night of an exam whatever may befall upon her next. In her school life she learned by heart the application entitled Full Free Studentship. Now she learns a similar lesson entitled Full Free Careless Life, no tension or anxiety, no study but only fun with Facebook, dress up, makeup, birthdays with friends, visiting DITF, window shopping and whatnot. The proverb says all that glitters is not gold. Likewise, the students who perform well in the beginning do not guarantee their consistent performance up to the last. Secondly, there are students who were free from family pressure and somehow were still interested in school and studies. Later on they are still willing for higher studies positively and they remain bright students from the beginning to the last. After a lot of reflections and observations over many of these bright students, I have understood the prominent reason. They were not forced to study but were observed by their talented parents whether they were losing their taste for studies or growing up with even better taste for studies, or if not, what to do to return their taste for studies. To clarify, in my childhood we used to play with toys which were able to walk straight unless blocked by a wall. The toys tried to break the wall but failed and still kept on trying as if failure is the pillar of success and like try 100 times. But these days we see toys which turn back or side to avert the wall and move on straight unless another wall blocks and does the same again and again. Similarly, the boys who are forced but not observed with caution may go astray, especially when the parents will lose their hold of control, especially in their graduation level. Lastly, there are students who do not pay heed to early education for fun and games and sports but later on, may have developed inner urge for one reason or the other. Subsequently they may study hard themselves and continue higher studies contentedly. They are the real self-learners with speculation, reflections and observations, and eventually may develop insight and can go deep into the subjects which have provoked them to ponder over interestingly. Shakespeare says all's well, that ends well. Everything has both sides, good or bad, like a coin. The early schooling may be detrimental to subsequent studies due to several reasons. The school teachers may be low paid and not well trained, and at the same time, are not motivated to discharge their duties properly. As a result, they may lose temper, fail to control it quickly, and punish the children unscrupulously. I remember the comic cartoon in the Daily Star where the student was severely punished because he had made a spelling mistake. Punishment instead of punishment in the sentence physical punishment is prohibited. In these circumstances, the teachers must be properly paid, well-trained and motivated to be caring rather than to be stern, rigid, bad-tempered and prone to punish. The school is not the end to studies, they have a far distance to go. If they are properly cared and taught, they will keep their taste for studies and will tend to study further themselves. As a result, they will require no home tutors, private tutors, coaching centers, and will not search the importantly probable questions for the exams. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.